My sister said, "Give up on your dream and work at Dad's company on the morning of my 28th birthday, while we ate pancakes that she didn't even bother making, just heated up from the freezer." She had just been promoted to vice president of the company and wanted me to be her personal assistant, because family needs to help each other. 6 months later, she knocked on my apartment door at 11 p.m. crying, because my dad found out she was having an affair with the company's accountant and selling confidential information to the competitor. I opened the door, looked at her, and said, "You should have kept the dream of being a decent person," before closing it in her face. The pancakes were still warm when she said it, steam rising between us at my tiny kitchen table. Victoria had let herself in with the spare key I stupidly never asked back, carrying a white bakery box and that practiced smile she wore for board meetings. She wore a cream Chanel suit that probably cost more than my month's rent, her manicured nails drumming against the table as she watched me pour coffee. I am Rebecca Taylor, and until that morning, I believed my older sister actually cared about my birthday. The graphic design portfolio spread across my counter told a different story than the one Victoria wanted to write. After 3 years of freelancing from my one-bedroom apartment in Portland, I had finally landed a contract with a major advertising firm in Seattle. The offer letter had arrived yesterday, tucked inside a FedEx envelope that felt like validation in paper form. Victoria picked up the letter without asking, her eyes scanning the salary figure before setting it down with a dismissive flick. $65,000? Rebecca, I made that as an intern at Taylor Manufacturing. This is embarrassing. Our father's company made industrial packaging materials, the kind of boring but profitable business that funded Victoria's lifestyle and paid for the convertible she drove. She had joined straight out of business school, while I chose art school, and was promptly written off as the family disappointment. Dad barely spoke to me at family dinners, and Mom just sighed whenever someone asked what I did for work. "It is a good opportunity," I said, keeping my voice level. "Seattle has a great design community, and this firm works with major brands." Victoria laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. "Playing with colors and fonts is not a career. It is a hobby that people do until they grow up and get real jobs." She leaned forward, and I caught a whiff of her expensive perfume. I need someone I can trust as my personal assistant, someone who understands family loyalty. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Victoria had spent the last 5 years climbing the corporate ladder at Taylor Manufacturing, and 3 months ago, Dad promoted her to vice president over several qualified candidates. The nepotism was obvious, but Victoria acted like she had earned every bit of it through sheer talent. "I have a career," I said. "This Seattle job is exactly what I have been working toward." Her expression hardened. "You have a pipe dream. There is a difference." She pulled a folder from her designer bag and slid it across the table. "I am offering $45,000 to start, plus benefits. You would handle my calendar, correspondence, and special projects. It is perfect for someone with your skill set." I stared at the folder without opening it. Special projects meant doing Victoria's actual work while she took credit, the same way she had stolen my science fair project in 8th grade and won first place. The same way she had dated my high school boyfriend behind my back and acted surprised when I found out. "I am taking the Seattle job," I said. Victoria's jaw tightened. "Dad will be very disappointed. After everything he has done for this family, you can't even help out your own sister." She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "But fine. Chase your little fantasy. Just don't come crying to us when reality hits." She left the pancakes and took the spare key, which felt like both an insult and a relief. I sat at the table for a long time after she left, looking at the Seattle offer letter and feeling the familiar weight of being the family screw-up. But I signed the contract anyway and sent it back that afternoon. The next 6 months passed in a blur of moving boxes and new routines. Seattle welcomed me with rain and possibility, and the advertising firm turned out to be everything I hoped. My designs appeared on billboards and magazine spreads. My boss praised my creativity and submitted my work for industry awards. I made friends who understood that art was not just a hobby, who talked about composition and color theory over coffee without condescension. Victoria called twice during that time, once to tell me that Dad had asked about me at dinner and seemed hurt that I had moved away, once to mention that the assistant position was still open if I wanted to stop being stubborn. I kept the conversation short and refused to feel guilty. Then, 6 months to the day after that birthday breakfast, my doorbell rang at 11 at night. I was working on a campaign pitch, my apartment littered with sketches and coffee cups, when I heard the urgent knocking. Through the peephole, I saw Victoria in wrinkled business casual, her perfect hair disheveled, mascara streaked down her face. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. "What are you doing here?" "Rebecca, please." Her voice cracked. "I need help. Dad found out about Marcus and the files and everything is falling apart." Marcus Brennan was the company accountant, a married man in his 40s who had worked for Taylor Manufacturing for 15 years. The files she mentioned sent a cold shock through my system, because I knew exactly what she meant. 6 weeks ago, my friend Jenna, who still lived in Portland and worked in commercial real estate, had mentioned seeing Victoria having dinner with a man who was not her fiancé. When I looked him up out of curiosity, Marcus Brennan's face stared back at me from the company website. But that was not the interesting part. The interesting part came from David Park, my ex-boyfriend from college who now worked in tech security. We had stayed friendly after breaking up, and when I casually mentioned Victoria's name during a video chat, he had gotten quiet. It turned out that David's firm had been hired to investigate corporate espionage at a manufacturing company. He could not say which company, but his description of the case matched my father's business exactly. I had not thought much about it until Victoria started posting Instagram photos from expensive restaurants and weekend trips to Napa, all while her official salary was public knowledge from corporate filings. The math did not add up, but I had pushed it from my mind because I did not want to believe my sister was capable of that level of betrayal. Now here she stood, crying on my doorstep, confirming every suspicion I had tried to ignore. "Dad found out what?" I asked, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. "About Marcus and me, about the information I gave to Carlson Packaging." Her words tumbled out in a rush. "I did not think anyone would notice. The files seemed insignificant, and Marcus said it was just competitive intelligence, nothing illegal." Carlson Packaging was Taylor Manufacturing's biggest competitor. They had been underbidding Dad's company on major contracts for the past year, according to the industry newsletter I still skimmed occasionally. The fact that they had inside information explained their sudden success. "How much did they pay you?" I asked. Victoria flinched. "It was not like that. Marcus said we deserved more recognition for our work. The company was not appreciating what we brought to the table." "How much?" $75,000 over 6 months. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Plus, Marcus was going to leave his wife and we were going to start over somewhere new." I almost laughed at the predictable stupidity of it. Marcus Brennan was not leaving his wife. Men like him never did, and Victoria had sold out our father's company for what amounted to pocket change compared to what she stood to inherit. "Dad fired me tonight," she continued. "In front of the whole executive team. He called me a traitor and said he was removing me from his will. Mom won't even take my calls. Brandon broke off our engagement. I have nowhere to go." Brandon was her fiancé, a corporate attorney who worked for one of Portland's most prestigious firms. His family had money and connections, and Victoria had been planning a wedding that sounded more like a royal coronation. Losing him meant losing social status, which for Victoria was perhaps worse than losing the money. I looked at my sister through the gap in the doorway, this woman who had spent our entire lives making me feel small and insignificant, who had mocked my dreams and dismissed my achievements, who had just admitted to corporate espionage and adultery while expecting me to provide comfort and shelter. I thought about the birthday pancakes she had not bothered to make, the way she had tried to derail my career to serve hers. Every condescending comment about my choices and every smug smile when things went her way. "You should have kept the dream of being a decent person," I said and closed the door. Her fist pounded against the wood. "Rebecca, please. I am your sister." I walked back to my desk and put on headphones, turning the music loud enough to drown out her voice. She knocked for another 10 minutes before finally leaving. I watched from the window as she got into her car, a rental from the airport, and drove away into the Seattle rain. Then I picked up my phone and made a call I probably should have made weeks ago. David Park answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the late hour. "Rebecca, everything okay? You remember that corporate espionage case you mentioned? The manufacturing company?" I kept my voice low even though Victoria had left. "I need to know if there's still an investigation happening." A pause stretched between us. I can't discuss active cases. My sister just showed up at my door crying about getting fired for selling company secrets to Carlson Packaging, my father's company, David, Taylor Manufacturing. Another pause, longer this time. Hold on, I heard him moving, a door closing. When he spoke again, his voice was different, more focused. What exactly did she tell you? I recounted Victoria's confession, watching the rain streak down my window as I spoke. When I finished, David let out a slow breath. The investigation is still active. Your father hired our firm 6 weeks ago after noticing irregularities in bidding patterns. We traced the leak to internal file access, but we couldn't identify the specific person without more evidence. His tone shifted. What you just told me could be crucial. Would you be willing to make a formal statement? What happens to Victoria if I do? Rebecca, this isn't just about getting fired. Corporate espionage is a federal crime. If she sold proprietary information, she's looking at serious legal consequences regardless of what you do or don't say. I thought about Victoria's face in the doorway, destroyed and desperate. Part of me felt the old instinct to protect her, the younger sister programming that ran deep despite everything. But another part, the part that had spent 28 years being diminished and dismissed, felt something else entirely. I'll make the statement, I said, but I want something first. The next morning, I called in sick to work and caught a flight to Portland. David met me at a coffee shop near his office, sliding a folder across the table before I even ordered. Everything we have so far, he said. Your father authorized me to share it with you, once I told him you might have additional information. I flipped through the documents, my stomach tightening with each page. Victoria had accessed confidential files on 73 separate occasions over 8 months. The information included client lists, pricing strategies, manufacturing processes, and upcoming product launches. Carlson Packaging had used every bit of it, undercutting Taylor Manufacturing on bids and poaching major clients. The estimated damage exceeded $3 million in lost revenue. Marcus Brennan? I asked, cooperating fully. He gave up Victoria within hours of being confronted. Apparently, she initiated the whole scheme and promised him they'd run away together once she inherited the company. David's expression was grim. He recorded several of their conversations as insurance. The audio files are devastating. I thought about Victoria's tears, her claims that Marcus had led her astray. Another lie in a lifetime of lies. There's something else, David continued. Your father wants to see you. He's at the office. Taylor Manufacturing occupied a converted warehouse in Northwest Portland, the kind of industrial space that tech companies were turning into trendy offices. I had not been inside in 3 years, not since the last disastrous family dinner where Dad had asked when I was going to get a real job. His secretary, Patricia, who had known me since childhood, gave me a sad smile and waved me through to his office. Dad sat behind his desk, looking 10 years older than I remembered, his hair grayer, his shoulders slumped. Rebecca. He stood up, awkward and uncertain. Thank you for coming. We faced each other across the desk like strangers. He gestured to a chair and I sat, waiting. David Park said you have information about Victoria's activities. His voice was carefully neutral, the tone he used for difficult business negotiations. She came to my apartment last night, told me about Marcus Brennan and Carlson Packaging. I met his eyes. I'm willing to provide a formal statement about what she said. Dad's jaw tightened. Your sister destroyed everything I built. 30 years of reputation, gone because she wanted extra spending money and attention from a married man. He looked away. I failed somewhere as a father. The opening hung there, an invitation to reassure him, to take some of the blame, to make this easier for him. The old Rebecca would have done it. But I was not that person anymore. You failed long before this, I said quietly. You spent my whole life telling me I wasn't good enough because I didn't want to work in packaging materials. You dismissed every achievement I earned because it wasn't in your world. You let Victoria treat me like I was worthless, and you wonder why she turned out thinking rules don't apply to her? His face reddened. That's not fair. Neither was telling me graphic design was a hobby for children. Neither was comparing my salary to Victoria's at my own birthday breakfast. I stood up. But you're right about one thing. Victoria did destroy what you built, and I'm going to help make sure she faces every consequence. I walked out before he could respond, my hands shaking but my spine straight. David was waiting in the lobby. How did it go? About as expected. I pulled out my phone. Let's do the formal statement. I want this on record today. The deposition took 3 hours. I detailed every conversation with Victoria, every Instagram post that suggested income she should not have had, every suspicious detail I had noticed and ignored. David's colleague, a sharp-eyed woman named Jennifer Santos, recorded everything and asked follow-up questions that made me realize how much I had actually observed. This is extremely helpful, Jennifer said as we finished. Combined with Marcus Brennan's testimony and the digital evidence, we have a solid case. What happens now? I asked. We turn everything over to the federal prosecutor. They'll likely file charges within the week. She closed her laptop. Your sister is going to prison, Rebecca. You understand that? I thought about Victoria's face in my doorway, tears streaming, begging for help. I thought about 28 years of being made to feel small. I thought about birthday pancakes heated from frozen and career advice designed to keep me beneath her. I understand, I said. My phone buzzed as I left the building. A text from an unknown number. Please talk to me. I know I messed up, but you're my sister. We can fix this. I blocked the number and headed to the airport. The federal indictment came down 6 days later. I was in a team meeting when my phone started buzzing with news alerts. Victoria Taylor and Marcus Brennan had been arrested on charges of theft of trade secrets, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. The story hit the local business news first, then spread to regional outlets, and by evening, it was trending on social media. My phone exploded with messages, former classmates asking if I had heard, distant relatives demanding to know what was happening. My mother called 11 times before I finally answered. How could you do this to your sister? Her voice was shrill with panic. The police came to the house. They took Victoria away in handcuffs. Handcuffs, Rebecca! I didn't do anything to her. She did it to herself. You gave a statement to the investigators. Your father told me. You helped them build their case. Mom was crying now. She's your sister. Family protects family. Victoria never protected me. She used me, dismissed me, and tried to sabotage my career to serve hers. I kept my voice steady. She stole from Dad's company and sold secrets to his competitors. This isn't about family loyalty. It's about consequences. She made a mistake. We all make mistakes. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. This was a calculated betrayal that lasted months and cost millions of dollars. I looked out my apartment window at the Seattle skyline, the city I had chosen for myself. I'm done protecting people who wouldn't protect me. Mom hung up without saying goodbye. The next few weeks brought a cascade of revelations. Marcus Brennan's recordings surfaced in court filings, and suddenly everyone could hear Victoria laughing about how easy it was to fool Dad, how Marcus and she deserved the money more than the company did, how she planned to take over Taylor Manufacturing eventually and fire everyone who had doubted her. Her social media accounts, once carefully curated displays of success, became evidence exhibits. That Napa weekend, paid for with Carlson packaging money, the designer clothes, bought with betrayal. Every brunch photo and vacation post became a timestamp of her crimes. Brandon's family released a statement expressing their shock and disappointment. The wedding venue canceled and kept the deposit. Victoria's friends, the type who valued status above everything, stopped returning her calls. I watched it unfold from Seattle, deliberately distant from the wreckage. My own life continued to improve as hers collapsed. The advertising firm promoted me to senior designer after I won an industry award for a campaign I had spent months developing. My work appeared in a national design magazine. I started dating someone I met at a professional networking event, a kind architect named Thomas who respected my career and never once suggested I should do something more practical. But Victoria's destruction was not complete yet. That would require something more. I flew back to Portland for Dad's birthday in November. The house felt like a mausoleum, my parents moving through rooms like ghosts. Mom had aged overnight, her hair now completely gray. Dad barely spoke during dinner, pushing food around his plate. The lawyers say she'll probably get 5 to 7 years. he said abruptly, breaking the silence. Federal prison. My daughter in federal prison. Your daughter who committed federal crimes, I said. Don't you feel anything? Mom asked. No sympathy? No sadness? I feel relieved, I said honestly. Relieved that everyone finally sees who Victoria really is. Relieved that I'm not crazy for noticing how she treats people. Relieved that her actions finally caught up with her. Dad set down his fork. The company lost the Westbrook contract today. Our biggest client. They said they couldn't risk association with the scandal. I had not known this. I'm sorry. Are you? His eyes met mine. You gave the investigators everything they needed. You made sure Victoria would be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Yes, I did. I did not look away. Because she deserved it. And because someone needed to care more about what was right than about protecting family reputation. She's talking about a plea deal, Mom said quietly. The prosecutor offered 8 years if she pleads guilty and testifies about Carlson Packaging's role. 8 years. Victoria would be 38 when she got out, her entire life derailed. Part of me expected to feel guilty about this, to experience the remorse that good people supposedly felt when family members suffered. I felt nothing but satisfaction. The trial began in January. I was subpoenaed to testify, which meant sitting in a federal courtroom while lawyers dissected my sister's crimes. Victoria looked smaller in her conservative courtroom outfit, her hair pulled back severely, makeup minimal. She did not look at me when I took the stand. The prosecutor, a methodical woman named Amanda Fletcher, walked me through my statement. Victoria's attorney tried to paint me as a jealous sister seeking revenge for childhood slights, but the recordings and documents made my motivations irrelevant. Did your sister seem remorseful when she came to your apartment? Fletcher asked. No. She seemed angry that she got caught. She blamed Marcus Brennan and said she deserved recognition for her work. She never once mentioned the damage to my father's company or the people who lost jobs because of her actions. Victoria's attorney objected, but the judge allowed the testimony. That evening, Thomas took me to dinner at a quiet restaurant near the courthouse. How are you holding up? Better than expected. I sipped my wine. I thought I'd feel worse about this, guilty or conflicted, but mainly, I just feel tired. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to want your sister to face consequences. He reached across the table. That doesn't make you cruel. It makes you honest. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus Brennan testified against Victoria, describing how she had initiated the scheme and threatened to report him if he refused to participate. The jury deliberated for 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Sentencing was scheduled for March. Victoria's sentencing hearing fell on a gray March morning, the kind of day that matched the heaviness in the federal courthouse. I sat 3 rows back, flanked by Thomas on one side and David Park on the other. My parents sat in the front row, my mother's shoulders shaking with silent sobs, my father staring straight ahead with the blank expression of someone who had stopped feeling anything at all. Victoria entered in prison khaki, her wrists shackled. The transformation from polished executive to convicted felon was complete. Her attorney had filed motions for leniency, letters from character witnesses, even a psychological evaluation suggesting she had been manipulated by Marcus Brennan. Judge Patricia Hendricks was not impressed. Miss Taylor, you had every advantage in life, the judge began, her voice cutting through the courtroom silence. Education, opportunity, a family business where you held a position of trust. You chose to betray that trust not once, but repeatedly, over the course of 8 months. The damage you caused extends beyond financial loss. Employees lost their jobs. Your father's reputation suffered. The ripple effects of your actions will continue for years. Victoria's attorney stood to make a final plea for mercy. Judge Hendricks held up a hand. I've read the psychological evaluation. I've reviewed the character letters, but I've also listened to the recordings where you laughed about deceiving your father. I've read the messages where you called loyal employees stupid for not taking advantage of the company the way you did. She leaned forward. You show remorse now because you face consequences. That's not genuine contrition. That's self-preservation. The courtroom held its breath. On the count of theft of trade secrets, I sentence you to 6 years in federal prison. On the count of wire fraud, an additional 2 years to run consecutively. On the count of conspiracy, 1 year to run concurrently. Judge Hendricks closed the file. Total sentence: 8 years in federal custody, followed by 3 years supervised release. You'll pay restitution in the amount of $3.2 million to Taylor Manufacturing. My mother's sob echoed through the room. Victoria swayed, her face draining of color. 8 years. The plea deal she had rejected in arrogance would have been better. Do you have anything to say, Miss Taylor? The judge asked. Victoria turned, her eyes finally finding mine. My sister did this, she said, her voice cracking. She was jealous her whole life, and she finally found a way to destroy me. Judge Hendricks's expression hardened. Your sister testified truthfully about your confession. She didn't commit your crimes. She didn't force you to steal from your family. This is not her fault, and attempting to blame her now only confirms my assessment of your character. The gavel came down. We're adjourned. Bailiffs moved forward to escort Victoria out. As they led her past my row, she stopped, forcing them to pause. I hope you're happy, she hissed. You finally won. I met her eyes without flinching. I didn't win. You lost. There's a difference. She lunged toward me, but the bailiffs caught her, dragging her toward the side door as she screamed about betrayal and family loyalty. The courtroom erupted in murmurs until the judge called for order. Outside, reporters swarmed the courthouse steps. My father made a brief statement about being heartbroken but supporting the justice system. My mother said nothing, her face hidden behind oversized sunglasses. I declined to comment and let Thomas guide me to our car. How do you feel? He asked as we drove away. Relieved, I said, finally. But relief was only the beginning. 2 days after the sentencing, I received a call from Jeremy Westbrook, the CEO whose company had pulled their contract with Taylor Manufacturing. Miss Taylor, I hope I'm not overstepping by calling directly? Not at all. What can I do for you? I've been following your sister's case. I've also been researching you. His voice was warm, professional. Your design work is exceptional. The campaign you did for Cascade Coffee caught my attention. We're looking for a creative director for our in-house team. I'd like to discuss the position with you. The salary he quoted was double what I currently made. The position would put me in charge of a team of 12 designers working on national campaigns for a Fortune 500 company. I'm very interested, I said. Excellent. One more thing. He paused. I want you to know this offer has nothing to do with your father's company or your sister's situation. This is based purely on your portfolio and professional reputation. I don't believe in punishing people for their relatives' crimes. I appreciate that. Though I will say, your integrity in coming forward despite family pressure tells me a lot about your character. That matters to me. I started the new job in April. The promotion meant relocating to San Francisco, which suited me perfectly. More distance from Portland, from the wreckage of my family, from the suffocating expectations that had defined my first 28 years. My father called once to tell me about the Westbrook meeting. They're considering reinstating the contract. Jeremy Westbrook mentioned he hired you. He did. Because of your connection to the company? Because of my portfolio, Dad. My work. The thing you never thought was valuable. Silence stretched between us. I was wrong about that, he said finally. I was wrong about a lot of things. Yes, you were. Can we have dinner next time you're in Portland? Try to repair some of what's broken? I thought about it for a long moment. Maybe. Someday, when I'm ready. I was not ready yet. The first letter from Victoria arrived in June, forwarded from my old Seattle address. The return address was FCI Dublin, the federal prison in California where she was serving her sentence. I stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Rebecca, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to explain. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, and I've been thinking about everything that happened. I made mistakes, huge ones, but the punishment is too severe. 8 years of my life gone. I'm 33 years old and I won't get out until I'm 41. By then, everything will be gone. My career, my reputation, my chances of having a family. I know you're angry, but you're still my sister. I'm asking you to help me file an appeal. The sentence was excessive. With your testimony about my character, we might be able to reduce it. Please consider it. I'm not the monster they made me out to be in court. I'm your sister who made bad choices under pressure. Don't I deserve a second chance? Victoria. I read it twice, then put it through the shredder. The second letter came 3 weeks later, the tone shifting from plea to accusation. I did not bother reading past the first paragraph before destroying it. The third letter in August took a different approach. Victoria had found religion in prison, apparently, and wanted to make amends as part of her spiritual journey. She needed my forgiveness to move forward in her healing process. I sent that one through the shredder too. Meanwhile, my career soared. The Westbrook campaign I directed won a national advertising award. My team exceeded every quarterly goal. Jeremy Westbrook mentioned me as a rising star in his investor calls. I bought a condo in San Francisco with a view of the bay, decorated it exactly how I wanted, and hosted dinner parties for colleagues who appreciated my work and never once suggested I should be doing something more practical. Thomas proposed in September on a weekend trip to Napa, the same wine country Victoria had visited with dirty money. But my memories there were clean, built on honest work and genuine love. I said yes without hesitation. In October, my father called with news. The company is recovering. We landed 2 new major contracts this month. Westbrook reinstated their agreement, and they referred us to 3 other potential clients. He paused. I'm rebuilding, Rebecca, in more ways than one. That's good, Dad. Your mother and I have been in therapy, trying to understand how we contributed to Victoria's behavior, how we failed both of you in different ways. His voice cracked slightly. I know I can't undo the past, but I'd like to try to build something better going forward. If you're willing. I thought about the years of dismissal, the constant comparisons, the way he had let Victoria diminish me without intervention. The wounds were deep and old. I'm willing to try, I said. But it starts with you respecting my choices, my career, my life, not as some compromise or backup plan, but as equally valuable to what Victoria had at the company. I understand. And Rebecca, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. The words landed differently than they would have before. I had spent so long craving his approval that I had forgotten to build my own sense of worth. Now I had it, independent of his validation. His pride was nice, but I did not need it anymore. Thank you, I said. Victoria's 4th letter arrived in December, and this one was pure venom. She blamed me for everything. The investigation, the trial, the harsh sentence, her ruined life. She called me jealous, vindictive, cruel. She said I had finally gotten what I always wanted, to see her destroyed. You're not better than me, she wrote. You're just more calculating. You waited until the perfect moment to strike, and you made sure I couldn't recover. That's not justice. That's revenge. I hope it was worth destroying your own sister. I saved this letter, not out of guilt or doubt, but as a reminder. Victoria still did not understand that consequences were not revenge. She still believed she was the victim of my jealousy rather than her own choices. 8 years in federal prison had not brought her clarity or genuine remorse. It likely never would. In January, I flew to Portland for my father's birthday. The house felt different this time, lighter somehow. Mom had redecorated, removing the shrine of Victoria's achievements that used to dominate the living room. In their place were family photos that included me, finally visible after being overshadowed for so long. Dad's company was indeed recovering. He showed me the quarterly reports with obvious pride, and for the first time, asked about my work with genuine interest. I told him about the campaigns I was directing, the team I was building, the industry recognition I had earned. You did this on your own, he said, without family connections or nepotism. That's more impressive than anything I built. I learned from watching what not to do, I said honestly. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. At dinner, Mom brought up Victoria for the first time. She calls every week, collect calls from prison. She wants us to help with an appeal. Are you going to? I asked. My parents exchanged glances. No, Dad said firmly. Her sentence was fair given what she did. Trying to reduce it would be enabling the same behavior that got her there. He looked at me directly. We're choosing differently this time. We're choosing accountability. What does she say when you tell her no? She gets angry, threatens to stop calling. But she always calls again the next week. Mom's expression was sad but resolved. We're in therapy learning how to love her without rescuing her from consequences. It's hard. But necessary, I said. Yes, necessary. After dinner, I walked through the neighborhood where I grew up, past the elementary school and the park where Victoria and I used to play. Thomas walked beside me, his hand warm in mine. Do you think she'll ever understand? He asked. No. People like Victoria believe the world owes them, that rules apply to others. She'll serve her 8 years and come out believing she was wronged, not that she did wrong. I looked up at the winter stars. But that's not my problem anymore. No regrets? About testifying? About telling the truth? I shook my head. None. She made her choices. I made mine. The difference is, I can live with mine. We flew back to San Francisco the next day, back to the life I had built from my own talent and determination. Back to the career Victoria had dismissed as a hobby. Back to the success that needed no shortcuts or stolen secrets. In February, my design team launched the campaign that would define my career, a series of ads about authenticity and integrity, about building value that lasted. The irony was not lost on me, but the work was genuine. It resonated with audiences and brought Westbrook Industries their best quarter in 5 years. Jeremy Westbrook called me into his office after the numbers came in. I'm creating a new position, Executive Vice President of Creative Strategy. It's yours if you want it. The salary would make me the highest paid executive in my field under 40. The position would give me influence over the company's entire brand direction. I want it, I said. I thought you might. He smiled. You've earned it, Rebecca. Every bit of it. That evening, I called my father to tell him the news. Executive Vice President at 31. Dad, not because of family connections, because I'm good at what I do. I never doubted it, he said. Yes, you did. For years. But that's okay. I stopped needing your approval a long time ago. He was quiet for a moment. That's probably the healthiest thing you could have done. Probably. But for what it's worth, you have it now. My approval. My respect. My genuine pride in who you've become. Thank you. It means more now than it would have before. Victoria's letters stopped coming in March. I heard through my mother that she had been transferred to a different facility and was struggling to adjust. Part of me wondered if I should feel sympathy, but I reached into that space and found nothing. She had made her choices. I had made mine. 8 years from now, she would be released into a world that had moved on without her. Her career would be gone, her reputation destroyed, her dreams impossible. And I would be thriving, built on a foundation of honest work and choices I could defend in any courtroom. That was not revenge. That was simply justice. Victoria was released in March of her 8th year, early release for good behavior, shaving 10 months off her sentence. I learned this from my mother's text. Your sister is coming home tomorrow. Thought you should know. I was in Paris for a design conference when the message arrived, accepting an international award for a global campaign. The juxtaposition felt appropriate somehow. Victoria stepping out of federal prison while I stood on a stage being recognized as one of the most innovative creative directors in advertising. I did not respond to my mother's text. I did not need to. Thomas and I had married 2 years earlier in a small ceremony in Big Sur, surrounded by friends we had chosen and colleagues who respected our work. My father had walked me down the aisle. My mother cried genuine tears of joy, and Victoria's absence was not even mentioned. The wedding photos showed people who actually cared about each other, not performers playing family roles. Our first daughter was born a year later. We named her Iris after my grandmother who had been a painter. Not after family legacy or expectation, but after a woman who pursued her art despite living in a time that told her it was not valuable. My career had evolved beyond anything I imagined at 28. Executive Vice President became Chief Creative Officer. I published a book about authentic branding that became required reading in business schools. I spoke at conferences around the world, and design students studied my campaigns as examples of work that connected emotional truth with commercial success. Taylor Manufacturing stabilized under my father's renewed focus, though it never fully recovered its former size. Dad seemed content with that, having learned that bigger was not always better, and legacy meant nothing if built on exploitation. He sold the company last year to a fair trade manufacturing collective, taking less money than he could have gotten elsewhere, but sleeping better at night. When Victoria was released, she moved into a halfway house in Portland. Her parole terms required employment, drug testing, and regular check-ins with a supervising officer. She found work as a cashier at a grocery store, the only place that would hire a felon with her record. My mother mentioned this during our monthly video calls, her tone suggesting I should feel something about it. I did not. She asks about you sometimes, Mom said. Wants to know if you're willing to talk to her. No. Rebecca, it's been 8 years. Don't you think? No. I adjusted Iris on my lap, my daughter playing with the phone screen. She spent 33 years being cruel and dismissive. She spent 8 months committing crimes that destroyed people's lives. She spent 8 years in prison not because I was vindictive, but because that's what judges give to people who steal trade secrets worth millions. I don't owe her forgiveness, reconciliation, or conversation. She's your sister. She stopped being my sister when she chose corporate espionage over integrity, when she showed up at my door expecting me to hide her crimes instead of facing consequences. I kept my voice level. I've built a good life, Mom. A life based on work I'm proud of, and choices I can defend. Victoria has no place in that life. Mom sighed but did not push further. We talked about Iris instead, about the new design studio I was opening, about Dad's retirement plans, normal things between people who had learned to respect boundaries. I heard later through family gossip that Victoria tried to rebuild her career. She applied to business schools for a fresh start, but the felony conviction made admissions impossible. She looked for marketing positions, but no reputable firm would touch someone who had sold out their own family for cash. She eventually found work doing data entry at a nonprofit, grateful for the $38,000 salary that was less than half what I had made at her age. Her social media presence, once carefully curated success, showed a different person now. Humble posts about second chances and gratitude, photos from AA meetings and volunteer work, a performance of redemption for an audience that mostly did not care. I never followed her accounts. I never checked up on her. Her life after prison was not my concern. Last month, I gave a keynote speech at a design conference in Portland. My face was on billboards around the city advertising the event. 2,000 people filled the auditorium to hear me talk about building authentic creative work in an industry full of shortcuts and compromises. Victoria was in the audience. I saw her during the Q&A session, sitting near the back, her face older but recognizable. She raised her hand twice, but I called on other people. When the session ended, she tried to approach the stage, but security kept the crowd back while I signed books and took photos with attendees. I saw her waiting at the edge of the room, saw the moment she realized I was deliberately avoiding her, saw her face crumble with understanding before she turned and left. Thomas, watching from the side of the auditorium, raised an eyebrow when I finally broke free. Was that her? Yes. Do you want to? No. We went to dinner at a restaurant overlooking the city, the same view Victoria used to have from Dad's corner office before she destroyed it all. I drank excellent wine and laughed with colleagues and never once thought about my sister waiting in the back of the auditorium, hoping for a moment of my time that I would never give her. Because here is what I learned in the years since that birthday breakfast. Some people do not deserve second chances. Not because forgiveness is wrong, but because some betrayals are too fundamental, too calculated, too revealing of character. Victoria did not make a mistake. She made hundreds of deliberate choices over 8 months, each one prioritizing her greed over everyone else's welfare. Prison did not reform her. It just taught her to perform humility. And I had spent 39 years learning that I did not have to light myself on fire to keep ungrateful people warm. My daughter Iris turned 3 last week. We threw her a birthday party in our San Francisco home, the one with the bay view and the art studio and the rooms filled with love. My parents flew in, genuinely excited to celebrate their granddaughter. Thomas's family came, bringing presents and joy. My colleagues brought their children, and the house filled with laughter and chaos and genuine connection. No one mentioned Victoria. No one suggested I should reach out to her now that enough time had passed. The people in that house understood that family was not about blood or obligation, but about mutual respect and consistent care. Later, after everyone left and Iris was asleep, I stood in my studio looking at the sketches for my next campaign. Designs about strength, independence, and the courage to protect what matters. Designs that would reach millions of people and maybe help them find their own boundaries. Thomas appeared in the doorway. Happy? Completely, I said. And I was. Not because Victoria was suffering, though I felt no guilt about her struggles. But because I had built something real, something earned, something that could not be taken by someone else's malice or destroyed by their greed. The pancakes Victoria brought that birthday morning were frozen, microwaved, served with contempt disguised as concern. Everything I had now I made from scratch. Every success was earned through work that I could claim without shame. Every relationship was built on foundation that would not crumble when tested. Victoria would spend the rest of her life trying to convince people she had changed, that she deserved another chance, that her crimes were aberrations rather than revelations of character. I would spend the rest of my life enjoying the career she tried to dismiss, the success she said was impossible, the life she claimed I could never build. Sometimes the best revenge is not dramatic confrontation or elaborate schemes. Sometimes it is simply living well while refusing to carry the weight of someone else's failures. Sometimes it is closing the door in their face and never opening it again, no matter how hard they knock. Victoria knocked at my apartment that night, desperate for rescue from consequences. I closed the door then, and never reopened it. That door is staying closed.